in his stead. And we're taking from the selected letters of Shaykh Ibrahim, translated by our dear brother and respected colleague, Talut Dawood. And we're on the third letter of counsel on the enraptured person who was not a wayfarer and the wayfarer who was not enraptured. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, the avenger, the mighty, the compelling, the superior. And two greetings to the messenger, the master, the slave who said, "O Fatima, daughter of Muhammad, I cannot avail you of Allah in anything." To proceed, I praise him as he is deserving of praise. May my greeting reach our son Ahmed Cham, Malik Sao, and all those who happen upon this letter among those who claim to be associated with us. It is imperative to inform you that two people are not of me, nor are they of the path in any respect. A person who is enraptured but is not a wayfarer, and a person who is a wayfarer but not enraptured. They are not of me if they remain in the state that they are in and stop their journey. As you know, my rule is that if one wishes to be with me in my state, he should follow my path in word and deed by obeying the commands and avoiding the prohibitions inwardly and outwardly, and thirst and long to arrive at the pleasure of Allah and his messenger. However, if someone associates himself with us and then commits any disobedience to the noble, pure, sacred law by boldly committing prohibited acts and banning obligatory acts, then I call Allah to witness and I call you to witness that I am free from him. O Allah, I exonerate myself before you of what those people do. And then he quotes the Quran saying, "So let those beware who dissent from the Prophet's order. Let fitna strike them or a painful punishment, and turn to Allah in repentance, all of you, O believers." Just to mention concerning the opening of this letter, which is about the enraptured person who is not a wayfarer and a wayfarer is not enraptured. And this is referring to two states of, and two kinds of engagement with Allah. So the one who is enraptured is the one who Allah, it's as if Allah is pulling him or her to himself. So he is being carried by the grace of Allah into the presence of Allah, into the hajra, to the presence of Allah. The wayfarer is a person who by labor is putting one foot in front of the other to arrive at Allah. And the enraptured one can enter into, these states of kind of ecstasy and nearness and totally oblivious to anything other than Allah, while the one who is the wayfarer, the traveler, who is toiling forward. So Shaykh Ibrahim is saying it is not enough for you to be enraptured. Just say, "Oh, I'm so with Allah, I don't have to pray," or "I'm so one with God, I don't have to, obey," or, that's for the unenraptured people. That's for the people who don't really understand, the people who have not ascended unto the station that I'm enraptured in. No, even that person should be doing the work, putting one foot in front of the other as a wayfarer on the path. But a wayfarer who is only relying on their works, on their labor, and is not in that state of absolute marifa and has not arrived at the state of fana, and who is not engaging with the law in a state of gnosis, in a state of constant immersive awareness of Allah, but this person is just toiling away and relying on their labor, then that person is not of, Shaykh Ibrahim is saying that person is not of me either. So what is required is for one to seek that fana wa baqa, seek that marifa, seek to be totally immersed and enraptured by Allah, and that gnosis, profound immersion in the presence of Allah, and to be toiling. And either person who is missing one of these two is deficient. So we can tell this letter is going to be kind of a reprimand, because he begins in the name of Allah, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Then he says, the avenger. the mighty, the compelling, the superior. Generally speaking, those names aren't invoked at the beginning of a letter, generally speaking. So after he says Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, after he says the beneficent, the merciful, then he says the avenger, the mighty, then you know this letter in and of itself is going to be a Jalal letter. Yet it is still a letter of love, because we know it's a letter of love because this could be the reality of these people, and if he didn't love them, he wouldn't advise them. And he wouldn't call them back to the straight path, that he wouldn't expose them to their own deficiencies. He wouldn't do that if he didn't love them, if he wasn't taking care of them. But know that the love that is coming from this letter is that of the Jalal, of the majestic quality, and that he follows that with a hadith. After he sends prayers upon the Prophet ﷺ, he refers to this Prophet Muhammad ﷺ as the one who said, "O Fatima, daughter of Muhammad, I cannot avail you of Allah in anything." And this pairs with another narration of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when some people wanted to change the Sharia because someone who was caught stealing, they didn't want to cut their hand because of the status of this person in society. And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam swore by Allah that even if it was Fatima, his daughter, his beloved daughter, on occasions when asked who is the most beloved person to you, it was Fatima. On occasion, Lady Fatima, may Allah be well pleased with her, alayhi salam, that this daughter of his said he would cut her hand to say, this Sharia of Allah, the Sharia of Muhammad is not to be played with. This is Allah's affair. This isn't even our affair, it's Allah's affair. And so he's talking directly to Fatima, saying, "O Fatima, daughter of Muhammad, I cannot avail you of Allah in anything," meaning the affair of Allah and our obedience to Allah exceeds any and every other thing. So again, for him to introduce this letter with these attributes of Allah, and then this hadith, this is the one hadith he chooses, 2 greetings to the messenger, the master, the slave, who said, so the way he's introducing this messenger, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is by this warning to his daughter, his beloved daughter, Fatima az-Zahra, Fatima the pure. May Allah be well pleased with her. So we know something of what we're going to get in the letter already. So he's praising Allah, and he names some people, but he says it's imperative to inform you that 2 people are not from me, nor are they of the path in any respect. A person who is enraptured, a person totally immersed in this, in the presence of Allah, but is not a wayfarer, is not doing the work, and a person who is doing the work and is not in that state of gnosis. They are not of me, and if they remain in that state, then they are in and stop their journey. So Shaykh Ibrahim is cutting off his relationship with anyone who is like this. And nor does anyone who is like this have the right to say, I'm on the path of Shaykh Ibrahim and Yas, radiallahu anhu. Because not only do they harm themselves, but if they do that and say, I'm on the path of Shaykh Ibrahim, radiallahu anhu, then other people looking to be on the path of Shaykh Ibrahim will follow these people as their muqaddams, as their shaykh, as their leaders, as their teachers. So he is seeking to make it clear that these people, if this is what they're doing, then they have some other, they have their own path, but for them, they can't claim that we are on the same path. So he mentions the people of flagrant disobedience and the people abandoning obligatory acts. Now, of course, this does not say that anyone who commits a sin or commits 2 sins or commits 10 sins or commits 100 sins or commits 1,000 sins, that they are not on the path of Shaykh Ibrahim, Because if that was true, I would certainly not be on the path of Shaykh Ibrahim. It would be impossible for me to be on the path of Shaykh Ibrahim. I would have been excommunicated a long time ago. However, there's one thing about a person who is making mistakes, or a person who has some weakness or some issues, some challenges that they have to keep repenting for. But this is the thing, this person keeps repenting, keeps asking Allah for forgiveness, and keeps trying to rectify and reconcile himself with the path instead of making the path reconcile with him. And this is what we find not just in the affair of Shaykh Ibrahim. We don't find this just in the affair of Shaykh Ibrahim, but we find this in the affair of just the people who are Muslim altogether. So some people, they have trouble obeying Allah. They have some desire or some addiction or some issue that they do something, or they feel the need to do something or love to do something that is in disobedience to Allah. So that person is among the Muslims, but that person has to reconcile, keep trying to reconcile with the Sharia of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They have to make themselves reconcile with that. Unfortunately, particularly in our age, this is one of the big sicknesses of our age, is the people seek to change the affair of Allah to fit their desires. So I like to do this and I like to do that, and I've always liked to do these things. I was born this way, or whatever the case may be. Therefore, we should change Islam to more fit what I like and what I dislike. We should make Allah, we should change the affair of Allah such that it reconciles with what I like to do to make it permissible, and what I dislike to do, make it forbidden. What I like other people to say, make that obligatory. What I don't want people to say, make that haram, make that forbidden. That when a person is like that, what they are doing is they're making a god of their own nafs. And Allah mentions this in the Quran, that he's saying, look at these people who they take their desires as lords besides Allah, as gods besides Allah, as objects of worship besides Allah. So whatever their desires say, and this is where we see more and more really insanity, is because we see people's desires are changing every day. Yet they want the religion or society to follow behind them in whatever state they happen to be in. All of society, all of religion, all of everyone's opinion need to follow their desires around. So not only are they a slave to their desires, that the lowest part of themselves, the pig part of themselves, the dog part of themselves, has their self on a leash, being dragged around by the forelock. The desires are dragging them around. Wherever the desires, if the desires say go this way, they go that way. The desires say go this way, it goes that way. The desires say sit, they sit. The desires say stand, they stand. Their desires has them on a leash. They have a master. But that's not enough. Their desires then want to likewise put a leash on everyone in their world, in their life, to follow behind whatever their desires say, and to stand and sit and to go here and there, depending on whatever their desires are in that particular day, month, or year. So this Shaykh Ibrahim is speaking specifically in the affair of the Tijani path and the path of the faith of Shaykh Ahmed Tijani, but this we can find in the affair of Muslims in general. In this day, it is so strange. Sometimes I wonder what the people of the past, even 1 or 2 generations in the past, like Shaykh Ibrahim Inyas, or even more, radiallahu an, these companions of the Prophet, or the children of the companions of the Prophet, what they would say about our age, that how strange and bizarre it must be to see some of the people who say they are on the way of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yet they have strayed far away. So he closes this part of the letter saying, so let those beware who, quoting from the Quran, so let those beware who dissent from the Prophet's orders let fitna strike them or a painful punishment, and turn to Allah in repentance, all of you, O believers. And then Shaykh Ibrahim continues to say, as to what you have said, that my disciples are containers that have been filled with the secrets of the three presences, it is true. However, where are my disciples among you? My disciple is rarer than the red sulfur. If where you are, the matter is as you have described it, and you are troubled by the fact that I will remove permission from any muqaddam, any deputized murid that's deputized by the Shaykh to teach other murids, muqaddam, from any muqaddam in whose presence prohibited acts are committed, and he fails to forbid it, that as he is required, that if you are unable to do anything about it, emigrate to Allah and His Messenger and to us. By Allah, those people only stopped their wayfaring, even returning to feeling delight in temporary things due to their being distant from us. This is the importance of muqaddamship. And really this whole letter is the reason that Shaykh Ibrahim radiallahu anhu is being so hard in this letter, is because muqaddamship is so important. That if these people who are muqaddams are drifting away, then obviously the people who are with them are gonna drift off of the path into danger and punishment. And if the people don't respect the muqaddams as such, and the muqaddams are straight, but if the muqaddams are allowing for wrongdoing to happen, so it says, I will remove permission from any muqaddam in whose presence prohibited acts are committed, and he fails to forbid that as he is required, that if you are unable to do anything about it, emigrate to Allah and His Messenger and to us. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the muqaddam is responsible for the disciple, just as the Shaykh is responsible for his murids. And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is responsible for his ummah, and by extension means all of the human beings. So the weight of the responsibility upon the neck of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, upon the shoulders of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is beyond what we can imagine. Because look, any of you who are responsible, anyone, maybe you're responsible for one person, maybe you have a child, or you have anyone that you're teaching, or maybe you're responsible for 4 people, or 7 people, or 10 people. And if any of you take that affair seriously, the weight of it on your neck, then imagine all of the sons of Adam are upon your neck. All of the sons of Adam from the time that you are born until the day of judgment are the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they're only of 2 parts. The ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, those who responded to the call, who we call the Muslims, the believers, the Muslimun, the people of spiritual excellence, the people who have accepted the call of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then we have the people who have not yet accepted the call. So we don't know who will die upon the way of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam or not. So all of these people, how many billions and billions and billions of people are in the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he is the head of the flock, of the largest ummah, that every other ummah pales in comparison. The ummah of Musa alayhi salam, the ummah of Isa alayhi salam, the ummah of any of the other great men of Allah who ascended, Allah called to the great station of prophethood or messengership, that not even close, not even close. So then how much on the weight of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And this is why we find the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam weeping on many occasions, weeping about his fear concerning the future of his ummah on different occasions. For example, on one occasion, he's talking to Jibril alayhi salam, and he astaghfirullah, and he asked Jibril, imagine the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is it true that there'll be people from my ummah who will leave off the prayer? And he said, yes. And he weeps and weeps and weeps and weeps, and he couldn't stop crying. That because he knows what the salah is. what the opportunity for the salah is, and he knows the punishment for leaving off the salah. So he's weeping for people who aren't even born yet. He's weeping for people that aren't even born yet. When he sees, like in this month, the month of Muharram, that his grandson will be martyred, Hussein, alayhi salam, in seeing the fitna that will ensue after his death among the people of his ummah who have responded to the call, meaning the people who of his ummah that say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in the fitna, in the bloodshed, in the argumentation, in the conflict that was happening with these people, and he'll weep, cry. So then how much, and this is why Shaykh Ibrahim is being strict on these people, these muqaddams, that not only should they hold themselves to a standard, and they shouldn't be just careless and reckless with the affairs of Allah because they will lead other people astray, but also not to let their disciples just do anything because they're the caretakers. It's not even their disciples. Me as a muqaddam, I don't have disciples. I don't have personal disciples. I'm just a caretaker for the disciples of Shaykh Mahy Cisse. Who are the caretaker? Who is the caretaker of the disciples of Shaykh Hassan Cisse, or Shaykh Ibrahim Iyas, or Shaykh Ahmed Tijani, radiallahu anhu? And the affair is there's only one Shaykh in this tariqah, who is the Shaykh Ahmed Tijani, and he is only caretaking for the murids of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. So we're just caretakers. These people aren't ours. We're just caretakers. So we have to not, our main concern is not these people concerning ourselves, but we're caretaking these people for Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the Shaykh of this tariqah, for Shaykh Ahmed Tijani, the Shaykh of this tariqah. And this is something important to understand for the muqaddams and people that's important to understand for people who have muqaddams. And every muqaddam has a muqaddam. Every muqaddam has a shaykh. Everyone is following behind someone. And that is the perfection and the beauty and a safeguard of our affair. This is not just, every man for himself, so to speak. That there is a lineage, that there is a silsila, that there is a spiritual lineage, a rope that we're all holding to that will facilitate our safe passage from one place to another, from one station to another, from one landmark to another on the path to Allah Ta'ala. So again, I will remove permission from any muqaddam in whose presence prohibited acts are committed, and he fails to forbid that as he is required. Then if you are unable to do anything about it, emigrate to Allah and his messenger and to us. And this affair of the perspective of Shaykh Ibrahim, knowing the reality of his disciples, because he knows what he knows from Shaykh Ahmed Tijani, what he says about his disciples, and Shaykh Mahy reminds us of this all the time. May Allah be well pleased with him. Allahu Akbar. May Allah be well pleased with him. That the affair of the Muslim, first of all, the affair of the human being as a creation of Allah Ta'ala, and the station that the human being has with Allah. Then the station that the Muslim human being has with Allah. Then the station that the Muslim human being, disciple Shaykh Ahmed Tijani, has with Allah. You have to be careful with these people. You have to be careful with these people. You may, or I may, look at someone like, and not see them because I'm veiled by time or proximity, which are some of the densest veils, meaning that some of the veils is hardest to see through. That we see a person, it's like, oh, that person, we can only see people of the past. Say, oh, this great wali of Allah, oh, this great wali. Many of these people, including Shaykh Ibrahim, including Shaykh Ahmed Tijani, including Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there's people in their time who looking dead in the face of these great men, may Allah be well pleased with them, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, looking in the face of these great men and couldn't see them because of proximity. What do you mean? That's my nephew. That's my little brother. That's my son. That's my wife. That's my daughter. That's my mother. Who is, how could my son be that great? How could my baby cousin be that great? You're going to find that in the biography of Shaykh Hassan Cisse, Shaykh Ibrahim Inyas, Shaykh Ahmed Tijani, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His greatest, the Prophet's greatest enemies were his uncles. These are his uncles, Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab. These are family members or people closely related to his family, meaning people that knew him since he was a baby. That veil, they can't see through it because it's so close, they can't see it properly. So not only is the Muqaddam caretaking concerning the Shaykh, but the Muqaddam is caretaking among the disciples to make sure that not just that they're not doing prohibited acts, meaning privately doing sins, but the biggest sins are against each other. So this is why we find them always talking about making peace between the murids, make sure to make dhikr together, make sure to eat together, make sure to spend time together. I remember seeing a video of Shaykh Hassan, and I heard some of the people who were with Shaykh Hassan, who I wasn't with Shaykh Hassan while he was alive, radiallahu anhu, mentioning the importance of being together, being greater than the weird itself, than doing the daily litany itself. Because he says, worst comes to worst, you can make up the litany. But these moments that you have with the brothers and the sisters, you can't recreate those moments. They're more unique, they're more rare, they're special. Obviously doesn't mean go hang out all the time and don't do your dhikr, don't do your daily litanies and whatnot. Of course, you're doing that, but he's making the point that these moments are special. So there's a great opportunity for ascension, but if a person doesn't take them they don't enter into it with the right state of heart, then it will cause descension and it will cause destruction, because the affair of the believers and especially the murids of the Shaykh is sacred. We'll just take a few more sentences and we'll close for today, inshallah. And so he says, by Allah, so he's saying, if you're unable to do anything about it, emigrate to Allah and his messenger and to us. By Allah, those people who stopped their wayfaring, they're laboring and they're going step by step deeper into the presence of Allah, even returning to feeling delight in temporary things due to their being distant from us. So he's calling them back to Allah and his messenger, meaning in their hearts and their minds, but then he's calling them physically back to them, saying, keep company with us. If you keep company with us, that in and of itself will help heal the heart from the things that have corrupted it. Indeed, if someone is present with us most of the time, he forgets the taste of desires. And there are even some young men with us who have forgotten the taste of desires to the point that some of them have forgotten their wives and will not come to them except with permission and discomfort. That is my student. Anyone else is not. Thus, it is imperative to return to Allah in repentance, to obey the commands and avoid the prohibitions, to be abstinent, to be prudent, and to study. He exalted as he has said to the saint of saints, and quoting Quran, and say, my Lord, increase me in knowledge. So he's describing a state. Obviously, it goes to mention that this state is not for every single person. So it's not that every single person should leave the bed of his wife, and not every person will not find pleasure in their wives and so on. But he's describing a state of being about that these people, he's talking about young men in this case, but we could take this in general, are so focused and so consumed with the importance of the affair of Allah, of the Prophet ﷺ, of the Shaykh, of the path, that everything else falls away, including the comfort and the pleasure that they find in their wives. Everything else pales, and they become totally radically focused on the affair of Allah, his Prophet ﷺ, the Shaykh, and the path. then what is befitting for the disciple is that he perpetually continues wayfaring, to the point that if he catches up with me and his state becomes difficult for me, then he should travel to a sheikh who has a higher station than me. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look at Shaykh Ibrahim Inyas radiallahu anhu. He, and obviously this is like a hypothetical, but he's saying that the amount of emphasis that he's placing on the path, even more than the emphasis that he's placing on himself, because early in the letter, he's saying, one, these people are not from me. If they behave like this or behave like that, meaning he's making himself the way to measure one's guidance. And then also he says that people should migrate to Allah, his Prophet ﷺ, and to us, meaning you should come sit with us, sit with him, and by way of that, the heart will become pure. But then he says, just to make sure you don't misunderstand these things, then what is befitting for the disciple is that he perpetually continues wayfaring. He keeps going on the path to the point that if he catches up with me, that this murid, if he catches up with Shaykh Ibrahim, and his state becomes difficult for me, then he should travel to a sheikh who has a higher station than me. So then he's removing himself as an ultimate criterion, saying the path is even more important than your quote unquote loyalty to me. Now, obviously, this is a hypothetical. None of the murids are catching Shaykh Ibrahim, radiallahu anhu, but he's making the point, the emphasis on you have to keep going. 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 Even if you find yourself coming up behind me, don't stop. Keep going, keep going, keep going. If you find yourself passing me, then go roam the earth and find someone greater. This person will roam the earth and not find another sheikh until they died in the pursuit. But he's making the point that this is how much he's emphasizing the importance of the path. And we'll stop here, inshallah. This will be a good place to stop, inshallah. And we'll continue here with the third letter of the selected letters of Shaykh Ibrahim and Inyas radiallahu anhu. Oh Allah, oh Allah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik wa astaghfirullah rabbi wa atubu ilayh. La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu min adh-dhalimin astaghfirullah rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Oh Allah, you are the one whose hand is our soul, you are the turner of hearts. Turn our hearts towards your way and don't allow us to deviate after you've guided us. Surely if you allow us to deviate, if you do not guide us, then we will not be guided. If you do not remind us, we will forget. If you do not correct us, then we will be forever in error. We humbly seek your help. And إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ اهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمَ. Ya Allah, Allah, you alone do we worship and you alone do we seek for help. And we ask you for your guidance to show us and guide us on the straight way. Guide us in the way of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Guide us in the way of people that follow Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And don't allow us to go astray following any and every other path or to follow the path of our own base desires. Allah, forgive us, forgive us, forgive us. Oh Allah, we're forgetful and we're weak and sometimes heedless and ungrateful for what you have laid out in front of us. And you have given us great, great gifts, and we treat them as if they are burdens. Oh Allah, bless us to be more grateful. Help us to remember you, to be grateful to, and to worship you excellently. Oh Allah, bless us with nobility in this life and the hereafter, and honor in this life and the hereafter, and your pleasure in this life and the hereafter. We ask you for this by the barakah and the haqq of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam in this sacred month of Muharram. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Oh Allah, please accept this from us. Please forgive us, oh Allah, and don't leave us to ourselves even for the blinking of an eye, and reconcile the hearts of the believing people and the Muslim people and the Tijani people and the people of the path of Shaykh Ahmed Tijani and Shaykh Ibrahim Inyas radiallahu anhu and Shaykh Mahy Cisse and Imam Shaykh Tijani Cisse, all together, oh Allah, all together, oh Allah, in goodness and in love and in peace. Forgive us, oh Allah, for being distracted by any other thing. Forgive us for being distracted by our own nafus, our own ego selves, oh Allah. You're the one whose hands are soul. You are the turner of hearts, O Allah. And we have no other God beside you. ربنا اتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق وخاتم لما سبق نصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك مستقيم وعلى آل حق قدره ومقدار العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم آمين. Ameen. Please forgive me for any of my errors. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.